Well, hello there, beautiful people. So, back in my uni days, I was, like many students, bored out of my mind.
Is it possible to die of boredom?
Which got me thinking, what is boredom? That question led me to write a 40-page deep dive into its nature and ontological implications, providing a perspective wildly different from the scientific and popular discourse at the time. Without a doubt, this is my magnum opus. Not the LOGH video that took me half a year to bake. This. Because I spent more than 10 years mulling over, polishing, and rewriting different segments of it. Yes, even in the shower. And yet, when it came time to publish my work, well, let's just say it didn't gain much traction, either in Japan or abroad. One might say it was boring, but that didn't stop me. I mean, if you're not in it for the money, you can just drop it online as a little something for curious minds to process, which is exactly what I did. And then I rejoiced at how many talented people arrived at a very similar definition years later. And that is, boredom is a cognitive vector calibrator, allowing you to refine your inner narratives and meaning-making capabilities, ultimately leading to happiness. But then, something changed. Something that motivated me to add another chapter to that text. And that something is large language models, or by popular definition, AI. What if I told you that everything around us is a pattern? Our entire lives we consume and reproduce patterns. IQ is a standardized indicator of how many conventional patterns we can differentiate between. In that light, the Japanese word for idiot, baka, is a remarkably precise insult because it pinpoints someone's inability to distinguish between a horse and a deer.
An Egyptian deity has two souls, called the Ba and the Ka.
Oh dear. Creativity happens when we intermix the patterns in our heads. That's why every mythological creature is a fusion of pre-existing animals, mostly anthropomorphic. But we cannot create something completely unique from scratch. We can only increase the complexity of pattern intermixing until it becomes difficult to break down, at which point it feels unique. Even Eldritch Horror mostly looks like a squid combined with everything humanity has ever seen. We structure meaning using symbols, math, shapes, words, which is why we have so many ways to represent the same informational package. And this is where things get interesting. In my work, I define the human brain as, for the most part, a pattern prediction machine. This is key to understanding how boredom functions. Now, if you take a look at how transformer-based LLMs work, you'll quickly realize that they too are pattern prediction machines. And this is where LLM opponents raise the syntactic semantics argument, which is LLMs only understand structure, not meaning. It is a solid argument. But after years of watching this LLM madness unfold, I've come to believe it doesn't actually impact LLM's ability to generate meaning, because humans inevitably imbue the pattern mishmash product with semantics, and some might argue that syntax is actually more fundamental than semantics, as in structure comes before meaning. If everything is a pattern and AI works with patterns, then long term, do we even need humans to process this world? So where does that leave us? How do we find happiness in a world like this? One of the major conclusions I reach in my theory of boredom is that abundance leads to depreciation, while rarity leads to appreciation. Duh, some might say. But hey, at least Yuan Shao looks surprised. To me, this is the absolute constant of human experience. It applies everywhere, from economics to sex. And so I can't help but wonder, what happens when good, or even great, becomes so easily reproducible that it becomes abundant. How will novelty work? Well, fundamentally, the process of discovering and consuming patterns won't change. Even now, no human can consume even 10% of the research published in a specific field, let alone all the music in a given genre. But what will change is, let's take the Steam store as an example. 10 years ago, Steam would feature maybe 2 new games a week. Now, dozens of releases daily. Nobody has the capacity to go through all that. Game journalists get blamed for playing on easy mode, but the reality is that's often the only way to consume content fast enough. It is their job. But has that affected my ability to appreciate a good game when I see one? Not at all. However, if I play 10 similar Metroidvanias in a row, I will feel less satisfied because I'll start recognizing the same patterns. Humans have cognitive limits. That's why so many brilliant minds like Telegram's Pavel Durov talk about history repeating itself using words like loop and cycle. To quote Durov,
I do believe that the world develops in cycles. If things seem to go in one direction today, doesn't mean that tomorrow they will go the same direction. I also feel that at some point people will get tired of what they experience today and they would decide to move to some other direction. So I seen it after COVID, for example.
To rephrase, human cognition doesn't handle consistency well. Quite often, social discourse tends to go in loops, and the argument I'll try to make here is that my Steam situation is exactly the same. People simply grow tired of the same stimuli, and that tiredness eventually is replaced with irritation and anger. It is very hard to overcome this feeling of staleness and stick to the right thing. How many of you have picked a single offbeat YouTube video only to have the algorithm flood your feed with similar content? For me, it was a Legal Eagle video about the US election. Good video, sure, but I definitely wasn't looking for an election apocalypse in my recommendations. The problem, in an information-saturated world, people are even more inclined to seek out simple, one-sided interpretations of reality. Feeble minds crave inputs that reinforce their worldview. Years ago, I even considered writing a book called The World with No Wrong Answers, illustrating how people fall into this trap, whether by using search engines or letting algorithms dictate their content. Bill Gates once expressed concern over the sheer volume of misinformation generated by humanity. In an ideal world, AI could be tuned to encourage critical thinking, filtering out ideological/religious/political noise. But it's already used to generate misinformation. Transparency is key. AI could provide distilled, rational guidance instead of contributing to the chaos, but it's already generating chaos. Crap in, crap out, as they say. If we filter the crap, AI could become an ideal assistant, allowing us to focus on what truly matters, winning another game of Marvel Rivals, which is how most people already treat it. But we must never forget, the semantics layer, the ultimate verification, belongs to us. I'd love to quote here Spy and Family. It's not a 0 or 100. It's not as usual, and it's not to be rationalized in a convenient way. Words to live by. Many creators, both in AI's early days and now, have expressed fears about automating the joy of creation away. The painstaking pattern alchemies they've spent years refining can now be reproduced by a random model in minutes. As a job, this might mean you're no longer as uniquely skilled as before, but it doesn't take away your ability to enjoy the process of creating patterns just like you always have. It doesn't stop you from telling your story, and ultimately, that's the key to a happy life. Just like in the pre-AI era, those who generate new patterns will always be valued more. The challenge, however, is that AI can learn, reproduce, and even generate these patterns at a speed far beyond human cognitive abilities. That said, how many of us actually feel the joy of creation when we spend hours refining rotoscoping, manually selecting objects, or rewriting the same logic in yet another framework? Tasks where AI is already making a significant impact. We feel happy whenever we feel engaged, and creative process engages our optimal stimulation level in the most efficient way, contextualizing our ego in the moment, giving us a sense of fulfillment. We thrive when we direct, distill the inner narrative, play around with patterns. What we don't enjoy is being stuck in tedious repetition. That's the most harmful thing to our neuroplasticity. This relentless curiosity, the drive to find something novel and refreshing, is precisely why our civilization has advanced to where it is today. I'll reiterate, human beings can become anything depending on the kind of information you give them. Positive reinforcement and habitualization shape us. AI does not need this motivational layer, but that shouldn't and cannot stop you from expanding your pool of patterns, from continuously exploring and intermixing them to grow. As Hank Green puts it, greater knowledge leads to a greater appreciation of the world. So stay hungry, stay foolish, because at the end of the day, your happiness is a product of your story, your inner narratives, woven from the millions of patterns you encounter throughout your life. That'll be all.
I am Groot.
Who am I kidding? This video is all gibberish. I just wanted to do a face reveal.